Boogity. Welcome on into Three Bold Takes, guys. If you notice, it's Freddie, it's Chase, and there's a new guy we have today. It's Quinn's twin brother, Quintathin. He's with us. We're talking about the EA, not NCAA, not anything like that. CFB 25, guys. We're recording on a Wednesday, the 10th, guys. We're about a week and a half, depending on if you're pre-ordering on your console or if you're getting it in person. Me personally, I'm going to get it in person. Whatever you're doing, we're about a week and a half away from you having college football on your gaming console for the first time in a decade. And we're talking in this episode about the good and the bad that we see with the new game coming out. Quintathin, let us hear what you have to say first.
Look, for me, the thing at the top of my list for the good is the Dynasty mode. So the head team behind creating the game, that's where they put the vast majority of their effort, according to themselves. And you listen to like the layout of the in-depth recruiting. They're going back to like the older style of recruiting and like the NCAA like 11 to 13 era, where you had to like prioritize the amount of time you're spending on a recruit each week and getting to know them through phone calls to then prioritize your or to be able to win them in a recruiting battle. When it switched over to NCAA 14, it became extremely dumbed down, where it was like you get so many points, you can just allocate it to each person, and that's all you got to do to recruit. So I enjoy that they're putting more depth into the recruiting because it makes that side of the game more interesting. And you throw in the whole transfer portal stuff on top of it. But my number one most loved thing they announced about Dynasty mode is that when you're building your coaching staffs now, it's impossible. Like in the old games, your coaching skill trees were pretty small and you would just max them out really fast. And then there's an offensive coordinator tree, a defensive coordinator tree. Now every coach has the same kind of tree, and you can only spec into like a third of the stuff available. So when you're building your coaching staff, you want to say your strengths in recruiting, you bring a bonus on recruiting receivers, but you can't recruit offensive linemen. So maybe your offensive coordinator's strength is recruiting offensive linemen. That way you're not terrible. I enjoy that. I think it's making the Dynasty mode super, super complex. And that's, for me, the greatest thing. I can't wait to hear what they got on Road to Glory. I can't speak on that yet because they haven't released anything on it. But what they released on Dynasty mode, this is going to be the most in-depth Dynasty mode that we've had in an NCAA game, a college football game, I think maybe ever. As far as the thing I don't like that I've seen come out, I don't like how few teams there are in the 90 overall range. I know that might initially sound odd. One of the things I enjoyed about the older college football games is if you were a Power 4 type school, unless you were one of the really, really bad ones, you were usually an 85 to a 90. That way there was that big gap between you and the G5 minus the highest echelon of the G5. So most of the G5 teams were like 75 and lower. There is not very many teams up in that 90s overalls, which I guess is going to make the great teams feel great, which is a good thing. But I don't know. I feel like the ability for the games to quickly go off the rails in a Dynasty mode is going to be lost a little bit when the best teams are just guaranteed to be the best teams.
Yeah, that's a good point. So for me, obviously, I super ecstatic for this game to come out, right? Like it's been 10 years since we've had a video game like this. I know we had the college football revamped. It was still 14. They just added a few bits and pieces that are different. But for me, the number one thing I'm most excited about, Quinn, you hit on Dynasty, super excited for that. I'm excited for Road to Glory, however that looks. But is the gameplay. And I say that kind of with some hesitation, right? Because obviously it's still made by a company that also makes a Madden game that the majority of people don't like the way Madden plays. However, in that, deep dive that they showed where Donovan Edwards was playing against that Bordeaux, I think his name was, very prominent YouTuber. There was some passes in particular that I've never seen before in a video game. If you guys watched it, it was a post route. Well, actually, it was an out route, and the guy threw it over the receiver's left shoulder toward the out of bounds, basically. And the defender put his hand up but couldn't reach it, and it just dropped right in the basket. Those are passes that you've never been able to really do in college football because the defense was always so athletic per se, where that would have been an interception. The amount of control that you have over a certain type of pass play or a pass play in general looks phenomenal. And I also like how the way they have that meter to pass, right? If you go in the red, it's not going to be a very good pass. But it won't be 30 yards over their head like it is in other games, which is just so unrealistic in today's college football. Even when, quarterbacks make bad passes, especially the elite ones, it's never 30 yards over the head or, lands 10 yards in front of them. It's normally around the vicinity of the player, just maybe behind the receiver, a little high, a little low, things like that. So that's what I'm super excited for, is to actually play the game and to feel the new engine that they have and that they're running with in this edition of a football game. I've got two bad things. We don't know a lot about Road to Glory, but we do know, I believe you cannot start in high school like you could in the earlier editions. And I love that aspect of it. Playing a high school season, getting recruited, trying your best. Now, I know in NCAA 14, it wasn't very hard to get a good gig at a really good school, right? They don't just give out starting positions at Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State to anybody, and it felt like if you were halfway decent in high school, you could get one of those positions. I think you have to be able to start in high school, play that, and they need to make it a little bit more competitive. But my number one thing is Ultimate Team. I have never been a fan of Ultimate Team. Quinn, you said it best before we were recording, how it's basically legal gambling, right? It goes after that complex in the brain, and it's just a way for EA to make more money through microtransactions. And I hate that. I like how that's why I've always liked Dynasties, Road to Glory, Seasons, stuff like that. You don't have to play online one, so therefore there's no need to spend money in order to get better at the game. I hate games that are like that. I think it should be player-based. How often do you play? How good are you? That's how you get better. So Ultimate Team as a whole, I don't like. Mixed feelings on playing as past players. I think it's cool that you could play as Justin Fields or Tua or Trevor Lawrence, these type of players that you couldn't play because there wasn't a video game during that time. But I'm not really going to want to play as Tim Tebow because I've done that 3-4 years through NCAA games my whole life. So super excited. There's just a little small things here and there that I'm not super amped up about. Chase?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and start with my bad because it's not a super bad. It's just what I've seen from the commercials and the video so far. It kind of looks like a little bit like Madden, the graphics do. And so I don't think it'll fully, once you get into the game, that it will. But the build of the characters or the players, it kind of looks like a Madden type player. And I hope, because I want this game to be completely distinct from Madden in all capacities. And so, but it's really hard to do. It's kind of like, just being unbiased in this. And that's hard to do when you're creating Madden as well as a company. So I think that's the only one. It's not even a really big one for me. But I think the good ones are when the rankings came out. No 99 overall players. I absolutely love that. That was a huge thing for me because that's definitely, you're setting yourself apart from Madden. Madden always has this big hoopla about 99 overall club and who's in it and who's that. And then also in those rankings, the top 10, none of them being quarterbacks. I love that. Quinn, I don't know how well you paid attention, but I think the second or third best player in the game was a left tackle from LSU. Offensive lineman getting some love, man. How about that? Not Shedeur Sanders or Carson Beck or Quinn Ewers. in the top 10. That is amazing to me. That means they really went in depth with their rankings, with how they rated people overalls, with how they like assessed people. I think they did a really good job. Because I knew at first I was like the number one overall player is a defensive back from Michigan. None of the cover athletes were the number one overall guy. Spoke volumes. I wasn't pleased with it, so that means that they're doing something right with their ranking. So I absolutely love that. And then the second thing, guys, we get to have this game at earliest, what is it, July 15th, July 16th? I believe one of those 2 days. I know for sure within a week, us guys could finish a whole season within that week, right?
Yeah.
That means we can play the college football playoffs, the 12-team playoff, before it even happens. And that is going to be so cool to see how that actually comes to life in a video game before it even happens in our real lives. So I think that's pretty cool, just an insight into that and getting to see the 12-team playoff instead of them kind of working off a 4-team playoff from last year and then going from that. So I think those are two really cool things that I saw in this. Guys, anything else on the new college football 25 game? Well, all three of us are excited. We've been talking and conjuring up plans of how we're going to all play together, and so we hope that you are too. Stay tuned for CFP 25 updates from us. We might even start a little bit of a gaming channel. Who knows? We might get crazy with it, chaotic. I know, Freddie, I just kind of brought this out. Who knows? What might happen? But guys, thank you so much for hanging out with Freddie, Chase, and Quintathan, and this will be Three Bold Takes.